It's been 18 months since we've done this, and I think it's safe to say it's time to have a little rematch. As always, we'll start off with Shelly, and you'll notice that her hypercharge can greatly enhance the output of her super, but not so much her attack, as it only adds 5% to it. Shelly got 39th place out of our 81 total trials. Nita's hypercharge actually doesn't increase the damage of her bear, however the pet power gear and her star power will do that for her. She ends up in 16th place. Colt is genuinely just a high damage brawler, and when you give him his hypercharge as well as all of his other abilities, he can absolutely shred the save, getting 14th place. Bull gets a lot of help from his hypercharge and his star power. His super doesn't really deal that much damage, but with the help of everything else, he still finishes in 21st place. Not only is Brock's new hypercharge aesthetically pleasing, but it's also a really quick source of damage that allows him to take down the save in just about 5 seconds, putting Brock in 22nd place. As you may expect, El Primo is able to start off with a very high amount of damage, but after he consumes his hypercharge and his super, his speed drops off significantly, which goes to punish him in the end. 36th place. Barley is great at dealing with crowds, but not too surprisingly, he kind of struggled to take down the save because the only ability in his advantage is extra noxious, and when he finally finishes, he's in a 3-way tie for 51st place. Poco never stood a chance to begin with. He's able to do a bit of extra damage with Screeching Solo, but other than that, he's left strumming his guitar, and he gets dead last for 81st place. Even though she has a hypercharge, Rosa placed very low. She also did have the Thorny Glove star power to help her, but outside of that, she had no other source of damage. Once Rosa finally finished, she found herself in 65th place. Thanks to the pet power gear, recoil spring, and her hypercharge, Jessie's able to absolutely crush the save, landing her in 12th place. For Dynamite, we placed the save in the corner of the map to allow the majority of the cluster bomb to hit the save, and this, I'll just say, put him in the top 10. Pick was able to use his Hyper Super, Mind Mania, and everything else to finish the save really fast, and he also got top 10. The boost from 3 different 8-bit boosters does not stack, but he's still able to crush the save in a bit over 3 seconds, and this puts him in 11th place. Rico, he needs no description. He absolutely crushes it. The only thing that keeps his time over 2 seconds is the fact that his piercing shots will not damage the same target twice. He, of course, is on the leaderboard. Daryl hits the save twice with his super, and then he unloads round after round into the save, finishing pretty quickly and getting 24th place. Penny is the only brawler on this list who actually has a faster time without using any of her ammo. If we keep more targets alive, she can fire more rounds with her mortar. For this clip, the Carls were instructed to throw a burning attack and then use their super and then spam their attacks against the wall. This resulted in Carl getting 28th place. Jackie is just one of those brawlers where her only source of damage comes from her actual attack, which ends up making her take a very long time to destroy the save, even with the help of her hypercharge. She got 76th place. Unfortunately for Gus, I decided that it was unreasonable to set up a bunch of balloons and use that gadget. I mean, it just doesn't make too much sense, does it? Gus got 78th place. As for Bo, he gets a pretty nice burst of damage with his super, but after that he's left picking off the save's remaining health with just his regular attack. He ended up in 31st place. For this clip, Emses were instructed to use their regular attack at its optimal distance and then approach the save while they reload to get additional damage with their gadget and their super. Ems ended up in 54th place out of 81 total trials. We gave Stu a few walls so he could make some good use out of his breakthrough gadget, but after that he seems to slow down a lot, so much so that he ended up in 73rd place. We began the Piper trial by starting next to the safe and supering away, and then maintained a healthy distance while they spammed attacks using the snappy slamming star power. We would approach the safe to use our gadget, but we would return to a full distance before using an attack. Piper got 47th place. Then for Pam, it was a lot more simple. We just had to drop her super with Mama Squeeze and then just spam all of our attacks till the safe was gone. As a result, Pam got 33rd place. Frank's trial was a little bit difficult to coordinate, but we ended up taking out 3 enemies with reasonable timing and then attacking the safe as fast as we could. The windup for his super would actually slow down his trial. 32nd place. BB's trial took surprisingly low thought to pull off. Now that she has a hypercharge, we just boxed the safe in and spammed bubbles, and that's what we got. As you'd probably expected, BB is in the top 10. For B, we began on top of the safe so we could hit it with the entire super, and then we gave it reasonable distance to allow the gadget to wind up a little bit. B's timing put her in 61st place. nannies were instructed to wind up their super enough so that it could deal significantly more damage with autofocus, and then they began to rush it with their regular attack. Doing it in this order was faster than any alternative, and with that, Nanny ended up in 41st place. Edgar quite simply just had to spam a bunch of attacks and hard landing supers. His very quick reload speed was probably the most favorable thing for his outcome. He was the 37th fastest. Griff is surprisingly able to have the save destroyed by the time the cards from his super return back to him. Now, there's a slight chance the super might be glitched because I don't think it's supposed to do 6600 damage on the way out. Top 10, Groms were instructed to land their attacks at the edge of the healing pad to ensure maximum damage with the help of the X Factor star power. However, he has a rather slow reload speed, and this resulted in him getting 48th place. Cannon Form Bonnie has nothing to help her except for that one gadget that kind of speeds up her reload speed, so she took a while, and she got 71st place. But when you switch her to Bonnie Form Bonnie, she gets the landing from her super, that one weird gadget, and much stronger individual attacks to dish out, so she was able to break the save a little bit faster. This puts her in 44th place. Gale is unfortunately not really the best brawler for Heist. His limited abilities and weak super make him take quite a while, and he goes in 69th place. Solely due to her hypercharge, Colette destroys the safe in such an unbelievably fast time. After her hyper supers, there's only a quarter of the safe's health left, which obviously she'll finish off fast enough to land herself in the top 10. Belle, on the other hand, seems to be at a bit of a disadvantage because she can't mark the save, and even with her hypercharge, she ends up in 75th place. Ash gets a whole bunch of rats, his rage, and a reload buff thanks to his star power, but even with all of those factors, something bad happens because he still kind of takes a while to finish the job. To give you an idea, this time put Ash in 50th place out of 81 trials. Lola gets to use a perfectly lined up ego and the improvised star power. She was able to keep enough distance to not reduce her super's damage, and this allowed her to destroy the save fast enough to get herself 26th place. Sam's greatest speed came from hitting the save with 3 attacks and then using his super, and then kind of just spamming everything he got until the save was out of health. Sam ended up in 43rd place out of 81 trials. No special pattern was made for Mandy though, since she just has her super and then her attack, and since she was stuck with just one supercharge, she ended up taking quite a while. She got 70th place. Maisie is just another one who gets carried by her hypercharge. Surprisingly enough, she's able to destroy it so fast that she can't even use the pinpoint star power to her advantage. This obviously puts her in the top 10. Hank's best time comes from charging up a full attack and then hitting the save with his super. However, after that he kind of just has to wind up a bit of an attack and then finish it off slowly. It's okay though, he was prawn ready. 38th place. Considering Pearl's heat meter, we found that her best scenario is to use her hyper super and then hit the save with her remaining attacks. She got 18th place. Larry and Lori's optimal speed actually comes from a bit of an interesting tactic. Instead of dropping Lori on top of the save, he's dropped to the side to essentially feed Larry more ammo, which ends up putting them in 30th place. As you may expect, Angela's best time came from charging up each and every attack, but either way, that still did take a long time. His gadgets were not worth being used. He got 60th place. Mortis's initial burst of damage is decently high, but after that he's left taking a long time to finish off the save, primarily due to his low reload speed. Mortis placed 74th. Tara gets carried by all of the little shadows that she summons into the battlefield. What else can I say? This now puts Tara in 13th place. Everyone out there who always hates on Vengeful Spirits is definitely punching the air right now because it just destroys a save for Jean. This put him in 17th place. Max's best course of action is to just stay in motion throughout her trial. However though, she has only one source of damage, so she still does take a while. She ends up tying with Barley and another upcoming brawler for 51st place. Mr. P will start off with his home base as well as a whole bunch of porter reinforcements, and as soon as they all rush to save, Mr. P and his army end up in 20th place. The addition of Sprout's hypercharge enables them to destroy the safe in a significantly faster amount of time than before. With the help of a hypercharge, Sprout ended up in 23rd place. Byron had to be very careful to not accidentally heal his teammates since that would just waste the whole attack. Either way though, once he gets his booster shots and his super onto the save, he still did end up taking quite a while to deliver 80,000 points of damage. He tied with Rosa for 65th place. Squeak's super is able to do a lot of damage for him. After that, he does get the wind-up gadget and chain reaction, and he ended up in 27th place. Lou's super does do damage, but not that much. Either way, he gets to use it anyways, and then after that, he's left to just throwing snow cones at the safe until it finally runs out of health, which, believe me, does kind of take a little while. When he finally finished, Lou found himself in 63rd place. As you may have expected, the trio of Ruffses did start their trial with the little power-up from a super, which was able to increase all of his damage output by 20%, and in the end, Ruffs was in 42nd place. Buzz gets a 0 damage hyper super, but a very high damage hyper attack, so that kind of cancels it out. Anyways, as Buzz makes his way through and finishes the job, he ends up tying with Shelly for 39th place. For this clip, you'll notice that the Fang players keep running above the safe at certain moments, and that is because they were instructed to step above the safe to then use the popcorn gadget, ensuring that a few pieces would land on the safe. He tied with Max and Barley for 51st place. Once the eggs released a bunch of hatchlings, we then all used our gadgets and then just unleashed a bunch of attacks onto the safe. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that Happy Surprise does not work on the safe, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to use Unnatural Order instead. Eve got 59th place. Janet was another brawler that we got to place the safe in the corner for. Even though this allowed her to do a lot of damage with each of her supers, she still ended up taking over 14 seconds to finish the job. This put her in 67th place. As you probably expected, it makes more sense for Otis to have a 4th projectile with each of his regular attacks instead of a 4th second on a super. So that's the build that we used, and it tied Otis with Ems for 54th place. Buster deals maximum damage as long as the other 2 Busters were within his little blue super ring, but unfortunately he had no use for his super in this trial, which got him in 64th place. Gray is limited to just 2 things, finger guns and grand pianos. As a result, his time puts him in 72nd place out of the 81 total trials. As it makes more sense for RT to go straight into his split form, he still cannot mark the save whatsoever, and when you consider that as well as his slow reload speed, he ends up placing himself in 45th place. Although the safe has no mind for Willow to control, she can still deal 1500 damage with the use of her super. And so she ends up taking nearly 20 seconds, which places her in 77th place. Doug gets nothing but his regular attack, and then every now and then that one gadget. However, that doesn't make him the quickest brawler at dealing damage, and he ends up placing 62nd out of 81 trials. Chuck gets his train posts lined up in this weird fashion, and then he's just left spamming attacks and supers until the safe is completely destroyed. Once he finally finished though, his time put him in 57th place. Charlie's super obviously does not work on the safe, however she gets to use her hypercharge as well as even more spiders, which results with her tying with Pam and another brawler for 33rd place. Miko's optimal time comes from him kind of going out of order, where he uses super before his hypercharge, but either way, primarily thanks to his star power, he ends up in 29th place out of the 81 total trials. Before we start, understand that Melody's gadget does not make the impact that you would expect. Either way, all the spinning music notes as well as her attack result in her getting 25th place on this challenge. Weirdly enough, Lily's super will only damage the safe if it's used with her repot gadget. Unfortunately though, her having 1 ammo makes her take quite a while to finish the job, and she ends up in 58th place. This is probably one that you've been waiting for. Spike is able to use a combination of all of his abilities, including now his hypercharge, to destroy the safe in a bit over 1 second, and as you probably expected, this lands him in the top 10. Thanks to Crow and his hyper super, he doesn't even need to use any of his regular attacks by the time the safe is gone. Crow came within milliseconds of beating Spike's time, but he still took just a little bit longer. Either way, he still placed in the top 10. Leon is capable of a lot of damage, but unfortunately, since his super doesn't do any damage itself, Leon ends up in 46th place. Out of all of the brawlers with a hypercharge, Sandy actually takes the longest. The easiest argument is considering that he's not really meant to be played in Heist. Sandy ends up in 79th place out of the 81 total trials. The trio of Ambers use dancing flames almost like their melody notes, and while they do that, they unload all the ammo they possibly can onto the safe, putting Amber in 15th place. In Mecha form, Meg has to stand still to carefully unload her attacks, ensuring that she doesn't miss any projectiles, and then they all get one big arm swing, but she ends up taking over 10 seconds, which puts her in 56th place. But after that, it gets a whole lot worse because then we're on base form Meg, and she has nothing but her tiny pistol. Even with the reload buff from her gadget, she still takes over 24 seconds to finish the challenge, putting her in 80th place. For this clip, surgeons were instructed to stand on top of the safe and attack the cactus, maximizing damage with his star power. He tied with Pearl for 18th place. I guess our Chesters got really lucky because they got nice buffs from each of their gadgets. Chester then went to tie with Charlie and Pam for 33rd place. Cordelius gets to basically just use combo shrooms as well as his star power, since I mean, his super's not going to do any damage. But I mean, in the end, you'll notice that he can complete the job in under 10 seconds, and this puts him in 49th place. Last but most certainly not least, we have Kit. And well, we let one Kit ride another Kit because then that Kit gets to do more damage, but unfortunately only one Kit can ride another Kit when there's only 3 Kits. He can't carry 2 Kits on his back. But I'll remind you, Kit's like a support brawler or something, so he ends up taking quite a while to finally finish the job, and that puts him in 68th place. And here is the leaderboard for the top 10 brawlers for this challenge. That's all I have today. Thank you so much, members, and everyone else, thank you for sticking to the end. I'll see you next time.